Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because we're switching back and forth from that camera to this camera. This is the new X3 from Insta360. This is a dual lens 360 degree action camera. It's a lot of new features and upgrades to the X3 from the X2. We're going to talk about those new features and upgrades, as well as the Insta360 app, and of course, show you some clips and photos from this camera to let you decide, is this the next new action camera for you? Well, before we get too far, this is just gonna be an overview on the X3. If you're looking for a comparison video of this camera versus other action cameras, it's not gonna be in this video. That will be in the future when we get more time with this camera and are able to compare other ones side by side. For now, just an overview of the X3 and those new features and kind of showing you what this camera can do. All right, well, basic overview of the X3. As I said, this is a 360 degree dual lens action camera. That means that each lens is shooting over 180 degrees with a little crossover, and with help from the app, it's able to stitch that crossover together to give you a full 360 degree video clip. I'll talk a little bit more about how that all works when I talk about the app in a little bit. For now, let's get into the new features and upgrades from the X2. So there are a lot of new features and upgrades in the X3 from the X2, which I have here, not just externally, but also internally. Externally, we see a larger screen, a larger camera, and a couple more buttons. This has a 2.29-inch rectangular touchscreen, which is super easy to not just use, but also to see and check your clips after you shoot them. But they've relocated that quick capture button to the bottom left to accommodate the screen and added a customizable button to the right of it. On the side here, they've added a quick capture menu button, which lets you kind of drop down your presets that you can set up on this camera, which is really nice to switch between different modes quickly, straight to the settings that you like. They've also included a 5.7K active HDR mode, which is a nice feature on this camera to better expose your image, to have just a nicer video clip. This camera also shoots 72 megapixel raw photos in that 360 degree mode. You can use the pure shot, which is kind of like an auto editor from Insta360 in the app, or you can get your raw or JPEG and edit how you like. That's just a couple of the new features. I'll make a full list here and it'll be down below in the description. And as we go through the menu navigation on this camera and get into the app, I'll show you some more of the stuff that it offers. So if you pull down on the top, this gets into your settings. There are a bunch here for voice commands, lights, audio prompts, etc. Your wind settings, connecting to AirPods, a pre-roll that is new with the firmware update, a few other things in there, but this is the main one, bottom right, settings. You can change your USB modes, Bluetooth wake up, voice control, etc. And for us, we go to video sharpness and we select low. You can add sharpness later. Video bitrate, they have standard and high. We use high just for the highest quality. Just take up a little bit more space on the files, but not that big of a deal. As we get closer into stuff, see that clarity and sharpness there, all that detail over there, as well as what it looks like on stuff up close. That active HDR mode balancing this area compared to the regular 5.7K detail here. And one thing that's cool about this camera with action cameras is the field of view angle. It's super wide, it's like 170 degrees and a single facing. Right now it's in the 5.7K, 30 frames per second. I'll switch over to the 4K on that single lens mode to show you just the quality difference between shooting in a 360 mode versus a dedicated single lens mode. Now I do understand that action cameras serve their purpose for action, and here in the Lone Wolf, we use them for all that riding footage, but these cameras can be used for stuff like this, just walking around or if you hop off your bike and want to shoot someone else, and it's good to know how that's going to look capturing that person that's right there. Now this is with that 2.7K mode, walking, talking, again, still looks really good, but you get the benefit of a little bit extra help with the stabilization with the app, as well as being able to kind of reframe a little bit in case you were leaning off a little bit. And that helps a lot because it's capturing everything out of that lens and it's able to float that 2.7K around to get the right framing in case you're off just a little bit. Now this is the 4K mode. I've locked in a manual shutter speed. And for this kind of stuff, it's great because nothing's moving crazy fast. And it's just gonna be really sharp. Great for talking environments and syncing this footage with other footage from other cameras. Here we go. Rocky section there with a lot of roots. 5.7K, 30 frames per second. We're gonna keep going down the trail. See what it looks like now. All right, well, that was a couple clips from both the unicorn mount and the chest mount. And I wanted to speak to those two different mounting methods because those are the two that we use the most. Start the unicorn mount. It's a really cool angle. It's not something that I would probably spend all day doing, but to interject a few clips here and there, it looks super awesome. It's a fun look. As far as running the unicorn mount, it is lighter with the new carbon rail that they have. But the camera itself weighs more than the X2, so depending on your past experience, it could be lighter or heavier, or it's new to you. If it is new to you, mounting on the helmet's super easy, but you will get a little bit of neck fatigue, likely. I've tried a few different helmets, and for the most part, if you run it for a really long time, like a really long trail, you will get some neck fatigue from that front of the camera pulling down on the front of your helmet. But for a little segment here and there, it's a real cool angle to add in, and it takes no time to set it up. Secondly, the chest mount, our preferred method for all of our POV riding. Throw it upside down, face it forward a little bit, and that gets a real cool up the bars look. Two things with that. The perspective from this camera, because it's so wide and it makes it feel like it's so far back, you kind of get this like tight bars look. So you really have to punch in a lot to kind of widen that up a bit. I know it looks like I'm running like under 700 mil bars, but they're not, I promise. And the second part is running on that chest mount, because of the longer shape that it is from other action cameras, you will get some chatter on the mellow stuff, just cruising around flat or just flat trails. It's not that big of a deal, but on those bigger compressions and jumps and such, it will bounce some, and the FlowState's really good, except for in that element. It's just the camera is shaking a lot and it's hard for it to keep up in those moments, but it is just a moment and then you're quickly through it. So if you can see past it and like the benefits of all the other things that this camera offers, then that's not that big of a deal. But for some people, that is a big holdup. For us, we're just aware of it and try to film accordingly. Well, before we jump into a little overview on how to use the app, I want to talk about image quality. What's happening is you're shooting a 5.7K image in a full 360 mode. So if you unraveled that, it's a 5.7K that's super wide. So when you select and isolate a certain frame from that 5.7K, you're sampling a smaller image. And depending on your frame view and your perspective, it's getting smaller and smaller depending on how much you want to zoom in. That being said, when you go to that mode and you export it, all of those clips were the 4K ProRes sized image, so super high bitrate, high quality files, but you're upscaling a sampled image from that 5.7K. If you don't want to upscale and you don't want to stretch anything, then the single lens 4K modes are going to be a static 4K, and the single lens 2.7K mode is going to be 2.7K. That upscaling to 4K really is honestly, for the most part, totally fine. In my opinion, some other people might have different opinions, and that's okay. It's all personal to yourself. I just wanted to show those few examples and speak to the image quality and kind of what's happening on that sensor. If it's just going to social and you're going to use it on your phone and share it with friends and stuff, it's not a big deal at all. Plenty enough resolution. But if you want to do larger stuff and really push that 4K limit, that's just something to be aware of, that 5.7K in the 360 mode looks very different than a 5.7K from a fixed lens camera. All right, well, let's do a quick edit with the app to show you kind of what that workflow looks like.
And we're gonna open up the app here and dive into a video just to show you how easy it is to use the app to quickly set a keyframe, start the tracking, and let it track the bike or subject through the course of the video. Obviously, I sped that up for real time. And then you can adjust your POV angle for the footage clip, so that way you kind of zoom in or out to what you prefer. Here there are options to edit your footage by adding clarity or the color plus. I like to just scrub over to the filters and grab a quick filter just to see kind of quickly what it looks like. Obviously, when we edit our longer videos, we do different filters, but it's great to know that you can do this from within the app, track your subject, select your frame, and then you instantly have a clip that you can just upload and share with your friends or put on your YouTube channel.
Well, all in all, the Insta360 X3 really is a Swiss Army knife of cameras. It can do so much, as you saw through the menu and navigation. There are so many different shooting modes and capacities of this camera. It really lets the creative mind just get wild to have a lot of fun. I keep this with me at all times in the camera bag, in the car, just running around town. I just kind of like seeing what will trigger as I go. Again, a camera that has so many different options, it's so dynamic like this, it is gonna have its drawbacks compared to other cameras that have single-use designs. Obviously, the camera I'm shooting on is a single-purpose intentional type camera, so it is gonna perform at its peak for that one use. Something like this might not be for everyone, and that's okay. If you're just looking to get creative, get a bunch of wild shots, this thing is so dynamic and really unlocks a lot of options for you. And the updates and improvements that they're continuing to dish out for this camera and with the app really creates more and more as time goes on. If you have any questions or comments about the Insta360 X3, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer. And some of those questions I might carry over into the full long-term review when we've used this for a few more months. Again, the Insta360 X3, thanks for watching. We'll see you out on the trails.